In all of Greek mythology, there's one creature so terrifying, so powerful, that it stood as the ultimate adversary to Zeus himself. This is the story of Typhon, the monster they called the father of all monsters.
I mean, just listen to how the ancient poet Hesiod tried to put the horror into words. He described a creature of pure, unspeakable chaos. Fire flashed from its eyes, and from its 100 heads came this symphony of terror. You had hissing snakes, you had roaring lions, bellowing bulls, all at once. And you really have to ask, right? What kind of being could make the all-powerful Olympians turn and run for their lives? To even begin to understand that, we need to get to know the creature that caused all that panic. Okay, let's get right into it. We're going to start by breaking down exactly what Typhon was and where this cosmic nightmare even came from. So, Typhon wasn't just any old monster. Nope, he was primordial power made flesh. Think about his parents for a second. His mother was Gaia, the earth itself, and his father, Tartarus, the deepest, darkest pit of the underworld. He was basically born out of pure rage after Zeus defeated Gaia's other children, the Titans. You could say Typhon was her final, most deadly weapon.
Just look at this breakdown of his terrifying features. But honestly, a list doesn't even do it justice. The ancient writers said he was so vast his head literally scraped the stars, and his arms could stretch from east to west. And below the waist, he wasn't human at all. It was just this writhing, chaotic mass of giant viper coils. He was a living, breathing catastrophe. And his terrifying legacy didn't end with him. Oh no. With his mate, Echidna, who was a half-woman, half-snake monster herself, Typhon fathered a who's who of mythological menaces. I mean, every monster on this list was basically a hero's quest waiting to happen, each one a direct echo of their father's chaotic power.
So you know where this is all going, right? All of this builds to the ultimate showdown. And this wasn't just a fight. This was a battle for the throne of the entire universe. Now, what's really interesting here is that we have two different versions of how this war went down. The earliest story, from Hesiod, is pretty straightforward. Zeus, in his full power, shows up and just smacks Typhon down with his thunderbolts. It's a tale that solidifies Zeus's absolute might. But later storytellers, like Apollodorus, added this incredible twist. They asked, what if Zeus lost the first round? And in their version, the gods actually fled to Egypt disguised as animals, and Zeus was well and truly defeated. And this more dramatic version is a true epic. Typhon doesn't just beat Zeus, he physically rips the sinews right out of his hands and feet, leaving the king of the gods totally powerless. It actually took the cunning of the god Hermes to sneak in and steal those sinews back. Only then, once he was restored to his full strength, could Zeus begin this relentless world-spanning pursuit, a chase that scorched the earth and ended only when he used a volcano as his final weapon. So what happens when you defeat a force of nature like Typhon? Well, you don't just kill it, you have to imprison it within nature itself. Zeus didn't just banish Typhon back to Tartarus. No, he pinned him down, burying him under the island of Sicily, and literally turned the monster into a part of the world's foundation. The poet Pindar paints this powerful picture of his imprisonment. You can just imagine Typhon stretched out beneath the earth with the full crushing weight of Mount Etna pressing down on his chest. He became a prisoner of the landscape itself. And this is where the myth becomes so brilliant. For the ancient Greeks, this wasn't just a story. It was an explanation. When Mount Etna erupted, spewing fire and smoke, it wasn't a random geological event. No, that was Typhon, still furious, still fighting, vomiting flames from his prison. And earthquakes? That was just the shudder of his body as he struggled against his bonds. So here's the crucial point. This incredible story of a sky god versus a chaos monster, it didn't just appear out of thin air. It has roots that stretch much, much deeper and farther than just ancient Greece. So, within Greek mythology, the fight with Typhon has a very specific job to do. You could call it Zeus's final exam. See, his grandfather Uranus was overthrown by his son Cronus. Cronus was then overthrown by his son Zeus. Typhon was the last cosmic threat that could have continued that violent cycle. By finally defeating him, Zeus ended the succession crisis and established a permanent, stable order. But when we zoom out even further, this is where it gets really mind-blowing. This isn't just a Greek story. Look at these parallels from older Near Eastern cultures. The Hittite storm god, he loses body parts to a serpent monster before finally winning. Sound familiar?
The Canaanite god Baal battles a sea monster on a mountain that later gets associated with Typhon. And the Babylonian god Marduk? He has to defeat the chaos monster Tiamat to become king. The pattern is it's unmistakable. So what this all means is that Typhon isn't just Zeus's final enemy. He's the Greek incarnation of a fundamental mythological idea, that necessary, violent struggle between a divine champion of order, almost always a storm god, and the terrifying, serpentine forces of primordial chaos. It really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? When we hear our most enduring tales of good versus evil or order versus chaos, we might not be hearing a new story at all, but just the latest retelling of a battle that has been raging in the human imagination since the dawn of civilization.